Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for Developing High-Performing Suppliers. I'm Denise, and I am thrilled to be out of quarantine and able to be here today. I am delighted to have QAD and MRP expert Don Lindsey joining me again as well. So let's get some quick housekeeping out of the way. Everyone should have a control panel similar to the one I'm displaying. Please know that you connect to the webinar muted by default, but you can enter questions or comments at any time right where that big red arrow is pointing. And then during the Q&A, we will run through any questions we have in the order they're received. Also, when you exit today's session, a quick survey will pop up automatically. Of course, feedback is very helpful to us, so we thank you in advance for any feedback you do take a moment to provide. As soon as the recording of today's session is published, I will send out our email to all registrants. It will include the big blue Go to Replay button you see here, and that will take you directly to the webinar replay page. That is it for housekeeping. And as we move to the main event, here is just a very little bit about our guru, Don Lindsey. I do need to acknowledge our logistical challenges this month. Don will be here for our live Q&A, but he did prepare for us an MP4, and we will get to the Q&A immediately after the MP4 I'm going to transition us to right now. Here we go.
Good morning and welcome, and thank you, Denise, for the introduction. Well, after last month's exploration of some of the internals of QAD with our look at fixed assets, this month, let's go ahead and look outside QAD again and consider the improvement of supplier relationships with QAD's supplier performance functionality. In today's erratic business environment with supply chain disruptions, Suez Canal, gas prices, baby formula, Singapore, LA backup, manufacturers are more and more relying on the exchange of real-time information with supplier trading partners to better respond to market volatility and changing customer demand. There are significant benefits for developing closer relationships with suppliers. You can't do it yourself. You're going to need to have raw material processing and subcontracting to proceed and succeed in today's supply chain. To that end, you need supplier and materials you can trust and rely on. Supplier Performance affords you a great tool to accomplish this vital activity in your supply chain. In today's presentation, we'll introduce some pertinent concepts of supplier performance management, cover a broad overview of what is available for the task, talk specifically about QAD's Supplier Performance Management Module, cover a little bit about the supplier portal and the new Allocation GmbH. Here are just a few of the areas we'd like to cover today. Supplier performance concepts, we'll talk about purchasing data, registrations, rating systems, performance categories and weight factors, performance reports, and a little bit about accounts payable and ERS. As always, many terms and definitions that are associated with the subjects like supplier performance. You should be familiar with each. Remember, if you don't know the meaning of a phrase or term we use, please look it up on Google or go to the QAD website or send us an email at 32soft and we'll be glad to assist.
The need to understand your supplier dates back from medieval times. Since a manufacturer can't have complete control over where his raw materials are coming from, the manufacturer needs to know who is supplying that raw material. Over the last several decades, with the development of computers and the internet, that process of communication has been made more reliable. The first supply performance applications started to appear in the early 1960s with the advent of MRP and ERP applications. Knowing exactly when a product is going to be delivered and how much is critical to your control of your internal plant operations.
There are many supplier performance applications available on the internet today. I personally found at least 30 of them. Your organization probably uses at least one.
Here is probably one of the most common, but like last month we said with fixed assets, don't use Excel to do supplier performance. I would take a look at the functionality offered by the QAD Supplier Performance Module and compare it to what you have today. Remembering the 5.15 Supplier Performance Module is completely integrated with QAD's inventory and transaction processing. A supplier management system creates value for manufacturers by improving supplier collaboration, ensuring optimal sourcing, and developing a digital source to contract solutions. The solution facilitates real-time communication between manufacturers and supplier and eliminates lots of manual and costly processes. It also effectively manages inbound logistics and the migration of risks for cross-border processing. QAD offers 3 solutions to supplier performance processing. First, there is 5.15, the Supplier Performance Module, which we'll concentrate on today. Second is the QAD Supplier Portal. And on January 5th of 2021, QAD acquired the Allocation GmbH application out of Germany. There are several benefits to implementing a supplier performance process in your ERP system. It assists in improving supplier performance. It simplifies onboarding, qualification, and classification. It boosts visibility to improve productivity, and supplier performance reduces indirect cost and eliminates many manual processes. Purchasing capabilities automate and provide visibility to all phases of procurement, from planned orders to requisitioning and approval, through to the creation of the purchase order and the communication of schedules, and finally to the receipt of goods and services. Since QAD EE, before you do almost anything in QAD regarding suppliers, customers, banks, domains, etc., one needs to establish the business relationship. As we've spoken several times before regarding the creation of these various elements of the QAD data structure, the first step in defining a supplier would be to create its business relationship. For each supplier or business relationship, we need to define a schema, names, groups, along with address information, general information, and defaults. The general tab of the 36.1.4.3.1 Business Relation Create is used to define the general information about this business relationship, such as language code, domain restrictions, company code, tax report information, and name controls. Use the Tax Information tab to enter details that determine how taxes are calculated for this address. In addition to the basic components of the general ledger, account, subaccount, cost, project, you can define supplementary analysis fields, SAFs, to fine-tune transactions and reporting. The 2820.1.1 Supplier Maintenance menu allows you to create, modify, and update supplier values. In addition, you can incorporate auto numbering into supplier creation, as we've spoken before. You use 2820.1.1 Supplier Create to set up fields representing the companies you purchase goods and services from. Suppliers are used in purchasing, accounts payable, service and support, and other functions. Before setting up suppliers, you must first define business relations, payment formats, payment groups, bank account numbers, and supplier types. The Business Relationship tab in 2820.1.1 Supplier Create displays the address information defined for the associated business relationship that you have created for the supplier. Use 2820.1.1 Supplier Create Accounting tab
to set up controls for counts, tax details, and other accounting information. The Payment tab in 2820.1.1 Supplier Create is used to define credit terms, invoice status codes, and remittance settings for the supplier. The Banking tab in 2820.1.1 Supplier Create is used to set up the accounts and payment formats for a supplier. The details you enter here are automatically retrieved for supplier payments and selections. Use the default tabs of 2820.1.1 Supplier Create to set the default values for SAF code or analysis codes for the supplier. Tax Info tab values default to documents created for suppliers and can be modified during transaction processing. The Comment tab lets you enter free-form text related to this supplier that is saved with the supplier record. Comments can also display on supplier activity dashboards. As with all comments in QAD, each comment can contain 99 pages, 15 lines, and each line can have 76 characters. That is 112,860 characters, which can be stored for a single comment. Almost unlimited capability to document processes and suppliers. In addition to 2821, you can define both supplier types and purchase types for suppliers. 2822.1 Supplier Type Create creates codes for grouping suppliers for reporting. 2823.1 Purchase Type creates codes for grouping supplier invoices for reporting,
Cash expenditures
for different types of expenses. As with all QAD modules, the control file determines the behavior of the application. Here we see the options for purchase control.
We will not go into all of these as we have covered these previously.
Here we see options for price tables, schedule tables, line formats, and header comments. We use 2.3.1 Supplier Data Maintenance from the old SE side to complete operational data setup for each company that you buy products and services from. Supplier Performance Module uses this address to send supplier ratings to the associated supplier. Email is sent to the suppliers only when the supplier email address is specified in this field and the email to supplier is yes in the performance report card. The 2.3.1 Supplier Data Maintenance Supplier Pricing tab defines the buyer for the supplier, if we have non-sales order price lists, if applicable, price tables, discounts, and fixed price options. Here we have the 2.3.1 Supplier Data Maintenance Supplier Terms tab for credit terms, discount percentages, partials, DB, and COC numbers. The 2.3.1 Supplier Data Maintenance Address Tax Data sets tax data for the supplier. Normally, your suppliers do not use the same numbering schema you do. So 1.19 Supplier Item Maintenance cross-references both their number and the original manufacturer's item numbers to yours. It also keeps track of quoted price and lead time. PO Receipt Account is used to track purchase accrual amounts for this supplier, and Expensed Item Receipts is used to track receipts of expensed items for this supplier. Given the level of outsourcing today, supplier performance evaluation is a critical supply chain process. QAD's Supplier Performance Module enables manufacturers to monitor both internal and external suppliers, allows flexible, automatic, and manual data collection, records non-routine events, and can be tailored for both internal and external suppliers. Here are some considerations your organization will need to debate and arrive at a consensus regarding supplier performance. What are the categories? What are the events?
What suppliers?
Do you have any specific registration? Who is the email recipient? We'll cover each of these in kind. There are 22 tables associated with Supplier Performance Module. You should investigate and understand the functionality of each table. There are 27 menus in the Supplier Performance Module. You should know the functionality of each, and we will cover most of these. The Supplier Performance Module consists of 4 program types: set of programs, registration programs, data collection and maintenance programs, and reports and inquiries. The QAD Supplier Performance Module has several features that can benefit the interface between the organization and their vendors. A registration in Supplier Performance is a record used to specify the supplier, site, item, corporate commodity code, date, or combination of these for which performance data is collected. It's kind of like an item master file. Supplier Performance gives control of purchase activities you want, when, which registrations, etc. Supplier Performance automatically collects data during the following transactions:
Schedule updates from MRP, purchase order receipts, PO shipper receipts, RTS receipts, distributed order receipts, and document imports.
Supplier Performance offers 3 performance calculations or rating methods. Discrete method counts points associated with each performance event.
The proportional method
Assigns a percentage rating based on the actual numbers
satisfied events completed
divided by the total possible number of events, and parts per method
is
similar to the proportional method but uses a factoring number to assign a rating. You're not limited into using only one method in your system. You can apply any method with any registration you are tracking. Measuring supplier performance requires a concerted effort on the part of the organization for delivery performance indicators, quality indicators, and cost indicators. Careful analysis of negative indicators is necessary to ensure that the supplier is not getting blamed for your problems. Here are some additional elements that you will need to be defined while considering using the Supplier Performance Module, specifically around purchasing, material availability, purchased inventory investment, productivity of the department. You must feel comfortable with your own processes before you go measuring someone else's performance. Supplier performance requires a fair amount of setup, but then the actual collection of data is fairly straightforward and pretty much automatic. First you activate, then you define your categories and events. You relate the system categories to user-defined categories. You process shipments for automatic data collection. Enter any user-assisted collection. Create your own manual events.
and then generate your own internal and external reports.
But the process requires a great deal of communication with the supplier so that they end up understanding the performance criteria you require for continuing business. As we saw from 5.24 Purchase Order Control, the 5.15.24 Supplier Performance Control sets the parameters for a broad spectrum of supplier performance variables. Acceptable days early and late, shipment percentage over and under, shipment quantities over and under, default points, etc. all need to be defined for the supplier performance. Use the supplier internal rating frame to create a reference table that appears on the supplier's performance report cards. 5.15.10 Registration Maintenance sets the following parameters for items, suppliers, commodity codes, sites, or a combination of these. Use the supplier performance, start and end effectivities, acceptable days early and late, acceptable over or under shipments, use supplier percentage, etc. The 5.15.11 registration report gives you all the settings you have created for registration maintenance. However, as we all know, reports in QAD are somewhat cumbersome and normally require parsing in Excel to get at the data. I would recommend a browse that accesses VER master and VERD detail. to get this data. Use performance category maintenance to define automatic and manual data collection categories that are specific to your business operations. After you create category definitions in this program, you must associate them with corresponding system categories in 5.15.22, System Event Maintenance. The category definitions tells the system how to associate collected system data with performance report cards. Use supplier category maintenance to enable or disable data collection for a particular supplier site or any site supplier combination. With category and scoring, enter yes or no to specify whether this category is used in the system. Event codes can be system events, on-time delivery, quality of item, undershipment, overshipments, or subjective events, such as good phone support or sharing resource costs. They can also be negative, such as wrong labeling or excess freight charges. Event points are used by the discrete computational method only. The proportional and parts per computational methods use ratios to rate suppliers based on activity. 5.15.22 System Category Event Maintenance relates system categories and events with the category and event definitions that are created in the Performance Event Maintenance and Performance Category Maintenance. System event codes are early and late receipt, over and under shipment, missed shipments, duplicate ASN, and late ASNs. The cross-reference is necessary to enable automatic data collection and to tell the system how to proceed. Category names are purchase, PO returns, excellent supplier, deduct poor supplier, and ASN advanced shipping notice. Weight factors are multipliers used to affect the value of an event by compounding its severity. Factors are only applied to discrete categories. Use 5.5.1.1.1 Supplier Calendar Maintenance to define standard work week for each of your suppliers. This requires close communication with each supplier and subsequent maintenance to supplier calendars. Use 5.5.1.1.5 Supplier Calendar Exception Maintenance to define exceptions to calendars set up for calendar maintenance. An exception is an addition or a reduction of hours that apply to one or more shifts on a specific day. Again, requires close communication with each supplier and subsequent maintenance. 5.1.3 Supplier Delivery Time Maintenance defines delivery time codes. Each code consists of a specific time delivery window for supplier scheduled orders and percentages of purchase orders to deliver in that time window. Remember, supplier performance management is intended to measure suppliers' ability to perform, not your ability to properly schedule. You need to be able to identify such issues that are your causation, not the supplier's. Setting up a delivery time code ensures smooth production between supplier time windows. The sum of allocation percentages across the defined time windows must add up to 100%. 5.5.1.6 Supplier Control Maintenance defines schedule defaults for specific suppliers for the parameters of generate from MRP, zero firm days, schedules, weeks, fab and raw material, authorization days, and the ship delivery time codes. 5.5.1.9 Supplier Transport Mode Maintenance is used to define vehicles used to transport items from your suppliers to your company. Here we see the browse for transport ID, transport type, max load, max volumes, etc. Use 5.5.1.1 Supplier Network Maintenance to associate suppliers and vehicles with defined networks, sometimes known as milk run route functionality. Use 5.5.1.13 Scheduled Order Maintenance to set up scheduled orders for suppliers. There's not enough time to cover what it takes to use supplier schedule orders, but remember you are using these to tell the supplier what he needs to produce and deliver,
so that they can perform to your specification. This requires a great deal of discipline.
These three menus control how the supplier's schedule order processing is controlled at your facility. It is a somewhat complicated process and it needs discipline and routine to be successful. Remember, you have to be successful with supplier schedules before you can hold your vendor responsible for delivering and responding to your proceedings. If you're not using supplier schedules as a major part of your procurement, supplier performance is going to have to be dealt with your purchasing or purchase orders. Diligent attention needs to be made to all the activities of purchase order placement, purchase order scheduling, and purchase order receipts to ensure supplier performance is true and accurate to the requirements of the system. Purchase order receipts, and if required, purchase order returns, play an active role in supplier performance. We have covered these in previous webinars, and these require great coordination and discipline among several departments.
5.15.13 Performance Data Management
is used to review, modify,
and add comments or weight
factors to captured data performance. Once you identify the transaction ID, source, and supplier, you can modify any of these data elements for data performance. The 5.15.14 Performance Data Report selection criteria is based upon supplier source, supplier, site, item, commodity codes, and can include either inventory, subcontracting memo, or detail and comments. The 5.15.14 is a very detailed report with lots of information. This is hard copy. I would recommend to browse against VEO Master to get the supplier performance data. The 5.15.19 is summary data extract can be printed to page or text or printer. The 5.15.20 summary data report is based on these selections. Here are the standard supplier reports that will help with the supplier performance process. The output of a successful supplier performance system are detailed supplier performance reports.
The performance reports are category, registration reports, performance data, performance report cards, summary data, and the data consolidation programs reports are data summary extract, delete and archive, summary data, and the supplier cross-reference maintenance and reports.
Here we have the settings for the report of data for supplier performance. The 5.15.38 creates the performance data report. As the 5.15.38 is a fairly complicated output, you will need to make sure that you communicate extensively with your buyers and the sales and operations departments of your suppliers. Here are the selection criteria for the 5.15.15, the performance report card. Here is the 5.15.15 performance report card report with option 3, category, event, and detail. Each time a measurable transaction occurs, the system checks for associated registrations. Once a registration is confirmed, the
Performance data is recorded.
performance data can be collected automatically with following transactions: 5.5 schedule update, 5.1.13.1 purchase order receipt, 5.23.20 PO ship receipt, 11.7.3.13 RTS receipt, 12.15.20 distributed order receipt, and 35.1 document input. As we spoke earlier, entries in 5.15.3 supplier category maintenance are optional and are meant to handle exceptions to
The normal registration.
By turning off category for supplier, the category still remains registered, but information gathered is not used in the score calculation. In effect, you give a category full points for the supplier report card. User-assisted data collection can be processed in 5 areas: inventory transfers, purchase order returns, performance data maintenance, missed shipment event generator, and RTS shipments. This all depends on how your control files are defined. Here are 5 supplier views that will assist in tracking and controlling your supplier interactions: the Supplier Activity Dashboard, Supplier Invoice Activity View, Supplier Invoice Extended View, Supplier Balance, and Supplier Invoice Payment View. Supplier Activity Dashboard gives you most of what you will need in the supplier interaction process. More data is available if required. The 515.23 Delete and Archive menu affords the ability to delete and archive supplier performance data. In addition, you can maintain and process supplier performance cross-reference tables. The 515.17 Missed Shipment Event Generator is used before generating a performance data report or a performance report card for any supplier, to provide the system with the most current results for supplier sites, items, and commodity codes for that registration. You can run it by missed shipment date, last run date, and include DRP purchase orders or scheduled orders. ERS is an automation tool that converts electronic purchase order receipts into supplier invoices. This is for those suppliers with which you have high volumes, close trust, good data, and excellent communication. This can save untold amounts of manual processing for these super trusted suppliers.
ERS processing control indicates if ERS is currently enabled. This requires great discipline. Options are 0 when applied to a line or 1 when ERS is disabled.
Remember, don't try ERS unless you are very sure you know what you're doing. It can be hard to correct errors. This is not an accounting or accounts payable class, but you should be aware of how your organization pays your suppliers, because that is where the rubber meets the road, so to speak. They get paid for supplying your product. Supplier performance may help analyze how well they do that, but they need money. As with all modules and functionality in QAD that you are not familiar with, QAD process maps are a great help in understanding the data requirements, setup suggestions, and in-process instructions for, in this case, supplier performance. Here are some of the process maps available for supplier performance. Here is a process map for supplier performance flow. You can even access maps for monthly supplier performance processing. The QAD Supplier Portal also offers supplier performance measurement capabilities for delivery on time in full, delivery on time for discrete POs, for schedules, schedule absolutes, schedule SK line compliance, times exceeding min-max, ASN accuracy, cum disagree, and Kanban on time. Automated solutions, that is barcoding, contributes significantly to the accurate reporting for supplier performance.
In January of 2021, QAD acquired Allocation GmbH. Allocation Network automates and streamlines critical activities across the supply cycle. From a single portal, manufacturers and their suppliers can access auctions, demand and delivery information, sourcing, and all supplier information across the purchasing cycle.
There are 5 basic ways to improve supplier performance. Listen to your supplier. Establish service level agreements. Measure the supplier performance. This is what we covered today. Ensure your supplier data is accurate. Discipline, discipline, discipline. and establish routines and be predictable, be consistent. Having a solid, reliable supplier is probably one of the first requirements for success in the supply chain. Today, we tried to cover most of what QAD has to offer in this important area of ERP, from concepts to workflows to control settings to performance reports, interval reports, network, etc. I might also reference you to the February 2022 CIO magazine, where QAD was named one of the top most powerful ERP vendors. Build your resources to learn more about supplier performance. Here is a list of the URLs of supplier performance that you might use to better understand supplier management. Just a word about 32Soft loaders. 32Soft offers several, many, too many to list here, loaders and applications that can assist around most QAD functionality, from Production Planner Plus to Sales Order Loaders to Item Master to everything you could probably need to get into and out of QAD. The amount of time and effort required to properly feed these ERP and supply chain applications are voluminous. 32Soft can help with familiar Excel format loaders. There's a 60-day complimentary trial. Installation is very simple. Christian, Andreas, Selena, they're always around to assist. And the data loaders all work with the various versions of QAD, from SE to the latest. Please contact myself, Denise, or Alex if you are interested.
We hope you've enjoyed this quick overview of QAD supplier performance capabilities. All of our organizations rely on suppliers to provide quality products on time. It is important to be able to measure the provenance of this relation. QAD Supplier Performance Module has all of the functionalities to undertake a controlled and consistent program of vendor quality. Please contact myself or Alex if you think you have any questions regarding QAD or supplier performance, and we'll be glad to get back with you. Denise, back to you.
Thank you so much, Don, for preparing that for us. That was great. Lots of good information as always. I just wanted to note that all of our data loaders, as Don mentioned, they are available to trial, and they do include powerful yet basic functionality. So to be sure, configuration options can address company-specific nuances. So if you'd like a trial, great, or a demo with our team where you can discuss your company's specific needs or challenges, just give us a shout, let us know, and we'll get that ball rolling. Fall conferences. 32Soft will be attending both the Midwest and West Coast user group conferences, and Don will be presenting at both. So if you are attending, please be sure to stop by to see Don's presentation and visit with Alex. They'll be very glad to see you. As far as webinars, we do take a webinar break in August, but here is a look at our dates and topics when we return. In September, join us if you want to get rid of those locked records. They can be pesky or even downright show-stopping. So come see how you can get rid of them once and for all in September. Then in October, we have distribution orders, and you'll be able to see how you can easily gain control of those. Both of these webinars are a little earlier in the month to better accommodate anyone planning to attend the conferences. So there won't be any overlap there. That is everything we have coming up. I'm just checking real quick. No additional questions. So back to today and the importance of relationships and the value of suppliers. To have a healthy and thriving business, there must be healthy relationships. I think that's rather intuitive. And of course, it's not limited to suppliers, but all business relationships. Don, is there anything else we need to cover for today?
Just a comment. We're not here without our suppliers. All of us in manufacturing know very well that our supplier and vendor communities are the way we live. We don't grow our raw materials or subcontract things. So they are so important to us. So making sure that we understand and they understand us is part of this supplier performance process. So any supply chain worth its weight is going to have a supplier performance process. Just as I said, don't use Excel. Use a tool that is built to accommodate supplier performance. Both you and your supplier will benefit from that. So yeah, great stuff.
Yep, agreed. Yep, our relationships have to be viewed more as partnerships. So yeah, good points. Okay, well, Don, thank you so much for your time and expertise.
Thank you. I look forward to seeing people in both Grand Rapids and in Santa Barbara in October. So
yes, hopefully you'll have lots of good connections and catch up time then. And everyone, as always, sincerest thanks for taking the time out to join us today. We hope you have a safe, super rest of summer, and certainly we hope to see you right back here in September. Have a great day, everybody, from all of us at 32Soft. Take care.
Thank you much. Have a great afternoon.
You too, Don. Thanks.